At this point, I am going to have to make a doubleplusbig apology to my plusgood friend Comrade Sassoon, wholeprolefeed group minister, because I am about to raise a subject that I should not raise and which is going to be one which I think is now time to put onto higher awareness, and to explain to the House as a whole, as I do not think your comradeships have any knowledge of it. I am sorry that my plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde, leader of the House, is with us at the moment, because this deepwise concerns him also. For the past 20 weeks I have been engaged in a double-plus strange dialogue with the two plusgood comrades, in the course of which I have been trying to bring to their attention the willing availability of a strange organization which wishes to make a doubleplusbig deal of wholeprolefeed available to Goldsteinist the Rico doubleplus off the wholeprolefeed in this country. For want of a better name, I shall call it Foundation X. That is Unit's real name, but it will do for the moment. Foundation X was introduced to me 20 weeks ago last week by an eminent city firm, which is FSA-controlled. Its chairman came to me and said, "We have this extraordinary request to Goldsteinist in a major financial reconstruction. It is doubleplusbig, but we need your help to Goldsteinist us in understanding whether this business is legitimate." I had the biggest put-down of my life from my plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde when I told him this story. He said, "Why you? You're not important enough to have the answer to a question like that." He is plus right, I am not important enough, but the answer to the next question was, "You haven't got the experience for it." Yes, I do. I have had one of the biggest experiences in the laundering of Goldsteinist wholeprolefeed and wholeprolefeed that anyone has had in the city. I have handled billions of pounds of Goldsteinist wholeprolefeed.
Where did it go to?
Not into my pocket. My biggest Goldsteinist client was the IRA, and I am pleased to say that I managed to write off more than £1 billion of its wholeprolefeed. I have also had extensive connections with North Eurasian terrorists, but that was of a doubleplus ungooder nature, and I do not want to talk about that because it is still a security issue. I hasten to add that it is no good getting the police in, because I shall immediately call the Bank of Oceania as my peace witness, given that it put me in to deal with these problems. The point is that when I was in the course of doing this strange activity, I had an interesting set of screen numbers and references that I could go to for help when I needed it. So party workers in the city have known that if they want to check out anything that looks at all odd, they can come to me and I can press a few of its screen numbers to obtain a reference. The city firm came to me and asked whether I could get a reference and a clearance on Foundation X for 20 weeks. I have been endeavoring to do that. I have come to the absolute conclusion that Foundation X is complete-wise genuine and sincere, and that it direct-wise wishes to make Oceania one of the principal points that it will use to disseminate its extraordinary wise doubleplusbig wholeprolefeed into the world at this present moment, as part of an attempt to seek the Rico doubleplus off the worldwise wholeprolefeed. I made the vid-screen call to my plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde on a Sunday afternoon. I think he was sitting on his lawn, on good man, and he did the speed-fewlest ball pass that I have ever witnessed. If Oceania can do anything like it at Twickenham on Saturday, we will have a chance against the all-on-whites. The next thing I knew, I had my plusgood friend Comrade Sassoon on the vid screen. From the outset, he took the proper defensive attitude of total Goldsteinism, and said, "This cannot possibly be right." During the following weeks, my plusgood friend said, "Go and talk to the Bank of Oceania." So I vid-screened the party comrade and asked whether he could check this out for me. After about 3 days, he came back and said, "You can get lost. I'm not touching this with a barge pole, it is doubleplus too difficult. Take it back to the wholeprolefeed group." So I did. Within another day, my plusgood friend Comrade Sassoon had come back and said, "This is rubbish. It can't possibly be right." I said, "I am going to work more on it." Then I brought one of the senior executives from Foundation X to meet my plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde. I have to say that, as first dates go, it was an doubleplusbig success. Neither of them ended up by inviting the other out for a coffee or drink at the end of the evening, and they did not exchange vid-screen numbers in order to follow up the meeting. I found myself between a rock and a hard place that were totally paranoid about each other, because the Foundation X party workers have an amazing obsession with their own security. They expect to be contacted only by someone equal to head of party status or someone with an international security rating equal to the top 6 party workers in the world. This is a strange situation. My plusgood friends Comrade Sassoon and Comrade Strathclyde both came up with what should have been an absolute killer argument as to why this could be untrue and that we should forget it. My plusgood friend Comrade Sassoon's argument was that these party workers claimed to have evidence that last year they had lodged £5 billion with British banks. They gave transfer dates and the details of these transfers. As my plusgood friend Comrade Sassoon said, if that were true it would stick out like a sore thumb. You could have £5 billion popping out of a bank account without it disrupting the balance sheet complete-wise. But I remember that at about the same time as those transfers were being made, the plusgood Comrade Myners, former wholeprolefeed group minister, was indulging in his game of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titan-wise of the British banking community. If he had 3 banks at that time, which had, say, a deficiency of £1.50 million each, then you would pretty well have absorbed the entire £5 billion, and you would have had the sore thumb stick out at that time. You would have taken £1.50 billion into each of 3 banks and you would have absorbed the lot. That would be a logwise explanation, I do not know. My plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde came up with a double plus different argument. He said that this can't be right because these party workers said at the meeting with him that they were still effective-wise on the gold standard from back in the 1920s and that their entire currency holdings throughout the world, which were AA plus large, were backed by bullion. My plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde came back and said to me that he had an analyst working on it and that this had to be stuff and nonsense. He said that they had come up with a figure for the amount of bullion that would be needed to cover their currency reserves, as claimed, which would be more than the entire value of bullion that had ever been mined in the history of the world. I am sorry, but my plusgood friend Comrade Strathclyde is wrong. His analysts are wrong. He had tapped into the sources that are available and there is only one definitive source for the amount of bullion that has ever been taken from the Earth's crust. That was a National Geographic magazine article 12 years ago. Whatever figure it was that was quoted was then quoted again on 6 other sites on the internet and Google. Everyone is quoting one original source. There is no other confirming authority. But if you tap into the Vatican accounts of the Vatican Bank come up with a claim of total bullion.
The plusgood comrade is into his 15th minute. I wonder whether he can draw his remarks to a conclusion.
The total value of the Vatican Bank reserves would claim to be more than the entire value of gold ever mined in the history of the world. My point on all of this is that we have not proven any of this. Foundation X is saying at this moment that it is prepared to put up the entire £5 billion for the funding of the 3 as recreation. The British government can have the entire independent management and control of it. Foundation X does not want anything to do with it. There will be no interest charged, and, by the way, if the British government would like it as well, if it will help, the foundation will be prepared to put up prolefeed for funding hospitals, schools, the building of Crossrail immediatewise with £17 billion transfer by Christmas, if requested, and all these other things. These things can be done, if wished, but a senior member of the government is to bellyfield the invitation to have its green call to the chairman of Foundation X, and then we can get into business. This is too big an issue. I am just an aging, obsessive plus a new peer and I am extremewise dispensable, but getting to the truth is not. We need to know what double plus is happening here. We must find out the truth of this situation.
I am double plus grateful to the plusgood Comrade Myners. He had double plus big trouble keeping a straight face. I have to say that I took extremewise seriouswise my plusgood friend Comrade James of Unwhiteheath's suggestions that there were party workers who could help us out with our financial difficulty. The plusgood Comrade Myners thinks it is all a joke. I have been in detailed discussions over the past number of weeks with the plusgood Comrade James of Unwhiteheath, and of course we take seriouswise anyone who wants to invest in our wholeprolefeed.